Up next, we're going to have Mr. Greg Garvey on RHR Hollywood Lena with Woody, as he calls. And again, this 4-year-old was started in Chilliwack at the main event by Jake Krudneier, who is also here today watching. And so we brought him home from main event, and Greg took on and put a 60-day program on Woody. And he's going to walk you through his training program. And I got to tell you, Woody, again, we took to Chilliwack, is just a beautiful looking gelding. Good mind on him. When we took him to Chilliwack to begin with, he was the type that kind of stood off from you a bit and was a little bit concerned about where you were in the pen, but always watching you. And Greg said that earlier in his interview. Woody is always watching him. It's almost like he's stalking him with his eyes. So I'll turn it over to you, Greg, and you can talk about your stalker.
Can you hear me? So this is Woody, my stalker. I'm just going to quickly just sort of talk through what I think about starting a colt over 60 days, which is what I do for a living. I don't know how many I do a year, but it's quite a few, and that's all I've done for 8 years. And I also sit and think about it a lot. Like, this is something, they really shouldn't have given me a microphone because I'm obsessed with it. And when you get me talking about it, I don't stop. But I try to always just distill it down to the simplest explanation for everything that you do. I kind of need that. But before I get him saddled, I'm just going to do a little bit with his feet. And just a word to the wise, we did all this foot stuff. Everyone, their horses were all good picking their feet up. I have found I get along with my farrier way better if I make sure I do this on all the colts before he comes. For some reason, this seems to be the thing that the farrier gets in trouble with. And same on the hind feet. If you can get them like to stretch forward and stand like that, and maybe rub them here and rub them in the belly where the farrier's nippers might hit them or something. If that's all you do, it seems like it helps quite a bit. This here, it doesn't seem like it ever really matters that much. Anyhow, so when I get sitting and thinking about colt starting, I don't know, this was an actual thought I had maybe 2 years ago. A situation like this, the Garner family brings your horse, they want it back in 2 months and they want to see you ride it around and do some basic stuff. I got thinking, what is preventing you from doing that right now? Like, why is a colt starter even a job? And to me, if I think of it from that direction first, like if I can do it, I would just jump on them, ride them around, put them in the pen for 2 months, and they can come pick them up and pay me. That'd be fine. But why can I not do that? The first thing you got to address is they're going to be scared of something on their back. At home, I got a big flappy piece of plastic, and there's a million ways to go about it, but somehow you're going to have to deal with the fact that they're fundamentally afraid of something being up there on their back. Another thing that isn't so obvious is that 90% of horses are pretty afraid of something being tight around their belly. And I'm going to say 75% of the time, if a horse is bronchi, it's because he doesn't like something being tight around his belly. A simple way to deal with that is get a rope and put it around their belly so you don't have to have the saddle involved, and just get them used to that. Again, there's a lot of ways to go about it, but it's an issue that's going to have to be addressed because the saddle is going to be pretty tight. And especially when he kicks off into a lope, he's going to get a bigger trunk and the saddle is going to get even tighter. Usually that's when horses buck. Okay, so if you got through step 1 and step 2, he's not afraid of someone on his back. He's not afraid of the saddle being tight. Now you hopefully have a willing student, but he's still just a blank slate. When the Garner family comes to pick the horse up, they'll be able to saddle him and get on, but then they won't go anywhere. So then, let's say we need to ride around this pen, or we need to just go ride down the ditch or something. The first thing you're going to need is you need to be able to go forward. You need a gas pedal somehow. And I try to keep it really simple. I try to just think about their weight. Forward means you need to shift their weight forward. So, okay, if you can do that, then you can ride down the ditch. But if you want to slow down, you're going to need something else. So you're going to need to be able to shift their weight back. And to me, that's the same thing. Slowing down, stopping, backing up, it's all the same thing. It's shifting their weight back. And then, like if I was in the challenge or what I'm about to do, you got to lope them around both ways and turn them around both ways. To me, those are both the same exercise. It's just tipping their weight either really forward or a little forward and then tipping it left or right. Obstacles to me are basically all the same. They're all a test of, can you tip your horse forward when there's something in front that they might not want to tip forward into. And they look different, but to me they're all that same. You're asking the horse the same question at all of them. So if this was a 60-day horse and this wasn't a challenge, I was at home and someone was coming to pick it up, this is basically what I would do. I'm trying to demonstrate that I can tip him forward the amount that I want, like he's not running off, but I'm not having to beg him to go. And it's pretty easy to tip him left. If I want to turn him around, it's the same exact exercise. I just rock him back a little bit. So far it feels good. I really try to pay attention. Like if I turn the reins loose, he's not pulling to the gate. He doesn't seem to have anywhere that he'd rather be. He's a horse. I imagine there are places he'd rather be, but he's trying his best to be with me right now. Same thing again, like he's tipped forward at about the exact speed that I'm asking him. He's tipped right. If I want to turn him around, I'll just rock him back a little bit, but keep his weight to the right. I'm not really asking for any particular speed. I'm just shifting his weight. And if his weight shifts, he's going to have to move his feet or he'll fall over. And to me, a trot, you just tip their weight forward a little more. You'll notice a lot of these horses, and I think mine is similar. Someone would call it bridled up, like he's collected, or he's in a frame, or he picks his belly up. There's lots of different ways of saying it. To me, not that those are wrong, but they just don't make sense to me. To me, what this horse is doing is a picture of a horse that's leaning forward. A lope, I'm just going to, like when I lope, I'm thinking about his head and neck going forward. The only thing maybe that leaning forward doesn't totally explain about, say, what he's doing right now with his head is the only other element is if you get them to understanding why the bit is in their mouth, then they shouldn't fight it. They shouldn't really think about the bit. They should think about what it's asking them to do. And I find when I think about it that way, they start to ride around like this. If I think about softening their face, quote unquote, I have nothing but grief. And it's probably not anyone's fault except mine. It just doesn't make sense to me when you say soften their face. Like, just to give you a short biography, I didn't get into horses till I was in my 20s. And so I was brand new to everything. And if you say soften a horse's face, like I'm imagining you're like rubbing oil on it or like soaking it in water. It doesn't make sense to me why that has anything to do with riding them. But if you say lean forward and don't get obsessed with the bit, that makes sense to me. Just to talk about the horse for a second, what I really like about this horse is he's very forward. Like he'd always, left to his own devices, he'd maybe like to go 1 mile an hour faster than me. And I get along with horses like that because I can be a bit too chilled out. So if they're chilled out too, then we don't go very far. Okay, I've been speeding up and slowing down. I haven't stopped. But to me, it's the same exercise. And you'll see that, like, reining trainers do, I think, what little bit I've seen, they do way more slowing down than they do stopping. And my explanation of it is it's the same exercise. But I'm going to think about slowing down. If he wants to stop, that's good. When I turn, I just think about shifting his weight over here. I haven't really got into how do you shift his weight. We might need a longer discussion for that, but I just put the snaffle bit in his mouth and I try to get him to go the direction that the snaffle bit points. So when I take it over here to the right, I'd like his thoughts and his weight to go over there. And same thing, I'm just going to take this, both reins, just take the snaffle bit over to the left. And I backed it up with my outside foot a little bit. But and this is just what works for me. I don't think about their shoulders or their hips or their belly or their face. I'm not saying I don't, but maybe 10% of the time. And 90% of the time, I think about their thoughts, and their thoughts first, their weight second, their feet third, and the rest of the stuff just a very little bit. And so to me, I really like obstacles. I don't do a whole bunch of like purpose-built obstacles like this, but to me, this is a perfect opportunity to teach your horse to go forward. It's easy to go forward, you know, say if you're riding back towards the gate or towards the barn, but put something in front of them that's going to give them a reason not to, can get it easier to tip their weight forward, get them more reliable. So I'm not one, like an easy way to get him used to an obstacle is just put this obstacle in his pen and feed him hay on the other side, and he's going to have to get good about going through it. There'd be nothing wrong with that. It's not something I would do, because to me, you've wasted an opportunity to get him really respectful about going forward. I like obstacles the first time you go through them, and once they go through once, you probably won't see me do that obstacle again. This one will be a challenge. Thank you. This one I might have to go the skinny way. Yeah. See, like to me, I just love that. I love finding something that's a challenge and working on it. So he's got to cross the skinny deal towards the people he doesn't want to do it, so I can set up a choice. What's more important to you? Your belief that something is going to kill you, or my request to make you go forward? And I totally understand that if I were him, I would stick with the belief that something's going to kill you. But I'm just super impressed with horses that he can put his own self-preservation aside, and because I told him to go forward, he's like, all right, I'll give it a whirl. To me, as many times as you can practice that, that's the magic of it. Gates, it's all the same stuff. I shifted back there. I'm shifting the hind part left and the front part right, shifting the whole thing forward, putting it in park, shifting the whole thing back, leaving it. The tarp, this goes back to, is he scared of stuff on his back? We'll see what he says. Pretty good. So far, if this is just, like if this was going to be a barrel horse or something like that, there's no dragging a tarp in barrel racing, so strictly speaking, you wouldn't have to work on this. But for a ranch horse, you sure do, because he's going to drag a calf. And probably for any horse, you should work on it, because someone may hang in a stirrup one day, and it'd be nice if they didn't get kicked as the horse was kind of walking away. And again, like, I don't know if it shows, but this horse wants to be really soft in his head and neck, but I hope that I'm demonstrating that I'm not paying any attention to it. That is not, I don't have any luck working on it. I have luck trying to get the snaffle bit to go somewhere and have the horse's thoughts and weight go that direction. I'll just load him on the trailer quick. In my experience, when you're backing one off the trailer for the very, very first time, if they go to step off with one foot, do everything in your power not to let them step back up in the trailer. And this isn't my idea. I heard this from someone that heard it from Ray Hunt. But he said that some horses, they step back and they hit the ground, but it happens so fast they don't feel the ground, and they think there's just a hole. And I've experienced this. I've had a couple horses that did that, and I never ever got them backed up their whole life. But every one that I just made sure somehow they didn't jump back up in, I've never had any grief. This is Woody. He's a nice horse. He's very forward, and he's a very keen student. He knows when he's in class, and he tries to learn everything you go to teach him. Thank you.
Greg, thank you very much for showing us Woody.